Needs a summary. No, I
All right, I'd like to call this board meeting to order. We have 4 board members present, so we have a quorum at this point in time. We have, let's go ahead and start with non-agenda public testimony. We have 9 people? 11, all right, so each person will get 2 minutes. Let's start with Citizen, Donald Guy, and Francine Maxwell, please. 2 minutes.
June 6th, I put in a formal request for this board to add to their agenda the grand jury report discussing term limits. The city council had a meeting, and 2 of the board trustees and the general counsel went downtown and said that you would put this on the agenda if citizens begin to ask you. Well, I asked in Old Town at the Ballard Center when we did the LCAP, and I have yet to see it on the agenda. I would like the board to put on the agenda so that the citizens can come have a conversation about term limits and the fact that we want district elections, 2/3 votes, not to move forward, and you all have the grand jury summary just like we do, and we can sit and we can dialogue and we can begin to change our relationship for the 2017-2018 school year. Some of the problem is that the board trustees, you don't want to have a conversation with people. You don't want to open up and let 2 sides agree to disagree and walk away. We all, bottom line, have the best interests for children, but once you sit on that diocese for an enormous amount of time, some of your views get skewed. So we need to have term limits so that we can have fresh, innovative ideas. So once again, I am making a formal request that you put on the agenda for us to discuss term limits and every recommendation that the grand jury made to San Diego Unified School District. But I will be going to the Rules Committee, down to the City Council, and letting Chris Cates know that I've already asked this twice and it has yet to occur. And then I'll go to Mara Elliott's office because they said that city schools was supposed to take care of this, and you have yet to take care of this. Thank you.
Called Citizen Donald Guy and Francine Maxwell, Francisca Salcedo, Lorraine Burley, Carlos Donato, Hugh Vanderspeck, Frank Engel, and Celeste Barbara Kozaki.
Members of the board, by way of introduction, my name is Hugh Vanderspeck. I'm a resident of the Longfellow Elementary neighborhood, long-term resident of the Longfellow Elementary neighborhood. I actually went to elementary school at the Longfellow Elementary School, as did my boys. As you know, there's an $18 million, $19 million modernization program going on at the Longfellow Elementary School. The local residents would like a voice in that. To be clear, we're not interested in changing the building or doing anything like that, but we would like a voice in the decisions that are going forward with regard to landscape, with regard to colors, with regard to sight lines that will affect our neighborhood going out permanently, frankly. To date, that has not happened. The Site Modernization Committee has had meetings going back to 2015, and the minutes of the site committee in 2015 said they will reach out to the community, the local community, and tell us what's going on with the modernization plan. On a monthly basis, that has not happened. And so we're now left kind of out in limbo here, and what we would like to do is find out who the liaison should be for the local community. We also note that the Modernization Committee does not actually have a member on the Longfellow Site Modernization Committee that is a resident of the local community. There isn't anybody on that committee who lives adjacent to the school. We'd like to rectify that, just so we could have a voice to talk through the things, so that once this project is completed, it can be something that the faculty, the students, and the local community can be proud of. To date, we're looking for your help, because to date, we have not had, Carlos and a lot of our members of our community have reached out, but we haven't gotten anywhere on it. I think there's folks who are concerned that we're going to say tear the building down. We're pragmatic enough to know that that'll never happen, but what we would like to do is find out who to talk to.
Okay, thank you. Superintendent, maybe we can follow up with this request. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Lorraine Burley, and my information is on file. This is the proposed Scripps Mesa Joint Occupancy Project. The 66-year ground lease promotes to bring in $425 per year with escalation, but that does not include any district expenses such as staffing, equipment, maintenance, lab supply, IT support, or busing of students. The project promotes to raise $34 million, but it will use up to $50 million in Prop S and Z bond money to make the project happen by evicting a charter school from the school land. The project promotes that the building of the STEM lab is funded by the developer, but this is only the outside shell of the building. The district still needs to fund and maintain the inside of the lab. The CEQA review is not paid for by the developer. The district is paying for the CEQA review now. The developer will reimburse the district later, but where will the money be returned to? Back to the taxpayer bond accounts. This project was approved by the California Department of Education only after you had Midori Wong claim that the charter school had found a new location, when in fact this was not true. This apartment tower is a redo project. You need to go back and work together with the Scripps Ranch community, which we would be more than willing and happy for you to do. Thank you for your attention.
Okay, if I called your name, please come forward. Otherwise, Sabrina Hanlon and Kathy Peterson.
Sorry, I left my glasses in the car. Sabrina Hanlon, para-president. Help. Layoff bumping has been a complete disaster. I still don't have information, and the 30th is going to be here on Friday. I have members who still don't know what their hours are at sites they've been assigned to. I've reached out to departments and I'm ignored. With follow-up reach-out questions, still ignored. I've got people coming to me with all kinds of craziness. I can't get them answers because I can't get answers. I realize that the HR department is overwhelmed and understaffed, but that doesn't excuse a lack of response to the classified units that are also in disarray and in confusion due to no part of their own. I also, part of our impacts and effects, which I thought would have been on the board agenda tonight, and it isn't, that we agreed to, was to get some training for the principals with regards to workload, et cetera. I'm already hearing from members who have received emails from their principal telling them that because of staff cuts, that SETs will now have a /custodial job added to their positions, mopping, cleaning up vomit in the classrooms because there aren't enough classified custodial to do the work. That's not their job. They're special ed techs. They deal with students. They do cursory cleaning, not deep cleaning. So I'm hoping that those things that were supposed to be happening at these administrator classes that they were at last week would have been given, but apparently not all the administrators heard those words, or they weren't even given to those administrators. But we need to make sure that principals aren't laying jobs on our members that belong to another unit. You know, we don't mind pitching in, but we're not going to do somebody else's job because there's cuts, and it shouldn't affect us that way. We're already affected by, we've lost work year, lost hours. So I'm asking for help. I'm hoping I can get some. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Kathy Peterson, and this has to do with the new anti-bullying policy. I am one citizen among hundreds of thousands of citizens here in San Diego who are demanding that the San Diego Unified School District rescind Sharia law compliant policies, aka the anti-bullying policy. There are 4 major complaints. Number 1, the biased viewing and vetting of materials related to Muslim culture and history in our media centers and our classrooms. The key word is biased. Number 2, the school district establishing a formal partnership with the Council of American Islam is a huge problem to me and should be to every single citizen here in San Diego, because it is in part funded by a terror group known as Hamas. Number 3, the series of professional development training related to awareness and advocacy for Muslim culture. Now, we love diversity, but our school is where the diverse children learn American ways. After all, they are here to learn to be American citizens. Number 4, the Islamic religious practices and accommodations in our school. Now, students may be taught about religion in its historic context, but schools will not teach religion and its tenets. Now, that being said, we care about all students and we love diversity. But this new anti-bullying policy was specifically crafted to protect Muslim students and is therefore discriminatory and adversely affects the student body. We, the people, and myself as an individual American citizen, demand that the San Diego Unified School District rescind, retract, forget all about all aspects of this new biased, discriminatory, bullying into compliance policy known as the Sharia law compliance. Now, I want to say again that we love diversity very much. And we love that all walks of life come here to learn about our Constitution and our ways, because we feel that this is the reason why they come here. However, nationalization without assimilation is invasion. And
Could you conclude?
as an individual who can say, I also speak for hundreds of thousands of San Diego citizens, demand and are committed to stopping the proliferation and anti-constitutional
Okay.
Sharia law compliant policies.
Thank you very much. Yep. Celeste? Yep.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the school board. Superintendent Cindy Martin, my name is Celeste Babrakozaki. I'm the president for the San Diego Unified Council of PTAs. This will be my final statement, an official statement on behalf of San Diego Unified Council of PTAs. The executive board of the San Diego Unified Council of PTA issued a statement regarding gender-neutral bathrooms for our LGBTQ students, as there's research that shows that these students are subject to bullying and other harassments. I'll read an excerpt of this statement. The work that the district has undertaken regarding the implementation of the Fair Education Act and Assembly Bills 12-1266 and 1732 is to be commended. We ask that you now work with the students, parents, and administrators at schools to develop site-appropriate plans for restroom facilities to serve the needs of the school communities. Working together, we can serve our student populations while abiding by the state laws and California Education Code. This letter was co-signed by representatives from PFLAG, the Director of Operations for LGBTQ Pride, the Executive Director of San Diego Trans Family Support Services, co-chairs of the San Diego GLSEN, Director of Public Affairs of San Diego LGBT Community Center, CEO and Executive Director of the Trevor Project, and co-chair of the San Diego Ambassadors of the Trevor Project. So I want to thank you all for your time and patience with me for the last 2 years. It's been a pleasure. Thank you very much for your support.
Thank you for your service, Celeste.
Thank you, Celeste.
Okay. Okay, this completes non-agenda public testimony for this portion of the meeting. If we did not get to you in the first 30 minutes, we will also hear non-agenda public testimony at the end of the meeting. Thank you all for your comments and for taking time to address the board and the superintendent today. We appreciate your input, and please know that your perspectives help us to better serve our students, parents, and the community. Okay, I would like to welcome everyone present today and those watching the broadcast and call the June 27th, 2017 regular meeting to order with all board members present. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. No color. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. If you wish to address the board on any of the agenda items before the board today and your name is not on the speaker list printed on blue paper located at both entrances to the auditorium, and if you've not already submitted a request for public testimony form, please complete the form and submit it to Cheryl Ward, our board action officer. Speakers on agenda items will be called on to speak during the discussion of the agenda item. Once discussion begins on an item, no additional public speaker requests will be accepted. Our bylaws provide that public testimony on agenda items is limited to a maximum of 20 minutes per consent and/or action item, allowing for a maximum of 10 minutes per opposing viewpoint. Public testimony speakers are limited to a maximum of 3 minutes per speaker, and depending upon the total number of speaker requests received by the board on an item, the time may be reduced to 2 or 1 minute each. The time limit for speakers on today's agenda items will be announced at each item. Okay, can we get a motion to adopt the agenda?
Second.
Please vote. Okay, does any board member wish to remove any items from the superintendent's consent agenda?
I'd like to make a comment.
Uh,
I'd like to acknowledge our interdivisional curriculum committee for the work that they do each year to take a look at courses and bring us up to date, remove the old ones, add the new ones, a complicated process which they do extremely well.
Thank you, Dr. McQuarrie. Do we have a motion to adopt the superintendent's consent agenda? Motion and a second. Any discussion? If not, please vote. Okay. Okay, Ms. Donovan, do we have any reportable items to?
We do not.
No. Okay, and Superintendent Martin, administrative assignments.
Yes, management appointments this evening. Human Resources Officer Marvin Castillo, Title IX Uniform Compliance Officer Lynn Ryan, Program Manager Teacher Preparation and Induction Heather Harris, Vice Principal Early Childhood Education Melissa Roy Wood and Rosalind Turner, Vice Principal Marshall Middle School, Vice Principals Caitlin Moffitt and Stephen Olds, Vice Principal Crawford High John Ross, Vice Principal Garfield High, Miriam Atlas. Vice Principal Morris High, Tara Howell. Vice Principal Twain High, Tracy Makings. Principal Boone Elementary, Juan Nunez. Principal Cadman Elementary, Linda Truesdale. Principal Cherokee Point Elementary, Quinn Corral. Principal Crown Point Elementary, Armando Lopez. Principal Erickson Elementary, Darius Ashton. Principal Miller Elementary, Jennifer O'Connor. Principal Challenger Middle School, Catherine Dominique. Principal San Diego Met, Melissa Agaduelo. Principal Whittier K-12, Mary Grace Ridgway.
All right, thank you, Superintendent. And we've got Chevette Brown from Hoover High School for our ASB President's Report.
Hey, hi, so I'm going to start with our senior walk. On June 9th, we had a senior walk where we had seniors dress up in cap and gowns and walk to 12 different Hoover cluster feeder schools.
That's awesome.
We also had boys soccer come in second for our Division III CIF finals. Boys volleyball won Division III CIF. 120 of our students have been reclassified as English proficient. This is 22 more than last year,
Right.
and the standards were more stringent this year. As we prepare for the construction of our new school front, we partnered with Cardinals Interact and Rotary Club 33 for campus beautification. This project included a restoration/mini face lift of our new Highland Avenue entrance. College Avenue Compact is a partnership we have at Hoover. As part of its program, our students are guaranteed admittance to STSU upon completion. This year we had 150 students apply, 82 were accepted, and 63 of those students were CAC guaranteed. Lastly, we increased our AP program over the last 2 school years by 150 additional tests given. This year we added three courses, psychology, computer science, and world history. This will better prepare our students for U.S. history. Thank you.
Oh, it's fantastic. Great job, Shiva. And what are you going to be doing in August?
I'll be going to SCSU majoring in biology.
Fantastic. Congratulations, Shiva. And Shiva, could I also just ask you, who came up with the idea of doing the senior walk at the different feeder schools? That's a fantastic idea.
I think our dean, Ms. Brewer, last year, and then this year they gave it to our advisor, ASB advisor, so we put it on this year.
Yeah, no, it's a really, really great idea. Okay.
I know that the area superintendent saw some viral videos of that happening in other states and started a conversation. It started last year, I think it was the first year doing it, and walking through the halls of all the Hoover schools,
Yeah.
high-fiving them and giving them a glimpse at their future.
That's great. Love that. Okay, Superintendent Martin, your information report.
Thank you. I have a PowerPoint that we're going to load up. Full screen, yeah, thank you. So tonight I want to, thank you. Tonight I want to share 2 pieces of good news. First of all, that the first is the City of San Diego has recently completed the testing program for the water within our schools. The city looked at more than 180 district-operated schools and dozens of charters and private schools as well, and in the end, the findings were very encouraging. 94% of the samples came back with no detectable levels of lead in the water. That is obviously very good news for the families and students we serve. Overall, only 3 schools, 2 district and 1 charter, produced sample results above the lead action level. Those schools were Emerson Bandini, San Diego Co-op 2, and Bernie Elementary. District staff has already completed remediation at the first 2 sites, and subsequent city testing has confirmed that water is now within allowable ranges. The work is continuing now at Bernie, and I would like to thank the outstanding work of our facilities, nursing, and wellness teams, and recognize the determined leadership of the principal at Bernie. Together, they've not only managed to already restore service to approximately half of the campus, but they also have arranged for individual blood screenings for students at the campus in response to the parent concerns that we heard in the community meetings. In fact, they even went so far as to test for lead in their garden. They have a robust garden where the children water plants, and I'm pleased to report that the garden is safe, and none of the children that the school tested for lead had signs of lead poisoning. That said, this issue is not over. This board asked us to come back with a plan this month to address those schools where lead was detected but below the action level. You've asked us to do something no other district in the nation has done, at least as far as we've been able to tell in our research, and that is to eliminate all lead above the city's detection level from our drinking system. We're committed to that goal, and we'll come back with a plan to do so later this month. The other piece, or actually next month, July, the other piece of good news has to do with the amazing work done by our Human Resources Department, Labor Relations, and many other people within the district. Thanks to our strategic implementation of our supplemental early retirement programs, on thousands of hours of work to review specific credentials and match assignments. As of last Friday, the number of teachers in layoff status is under 300. The district completed the internal transfer process for certificated employees last week. This then allowed the HR department to begin the recall process on Friday, June 23rd. We expect to recall another 100 employees by mid to late July, which will leave between 150 to 200 certificated employees in permanent laid-off status. For classified employees, a majority of the employees have received their assignments for July 1st. The remaining employees still have the opportunity to select their seniority-based option for employment, and once those decisions have been made, the remaining employees with rights to positions are going to be placed, and the recall for classified position timeline begins on July 1st. It's currently in process. The charge from this board from the beginning has been to make sure that we did not lay off a single person who we will need in the future. I am confident when this process is over, we will be able to report that we have kept that commitment all the way through this process. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Superintendent. We'll start with board information reports. Dr. McQuarrie, do you?
Yeah, I just want to highlight three events that focus on three different areas. One has to do with acknowledging the expanded choices within our district. Two, in terms of working statewide with committees on how to make programs better and to share best practices. And then finally, acknowledging students for their outstanding attendance. So in terms of expanding choices, Principal Stephanie Brown at Montgomery Middle School has recently been in the press regarding the STEAM Magnet program within the Kearney cluster. So it's 3 schools that are part of this effort, and that's Montgomery Middle School, Linda Vista Elementary, and Carson Elementary School. The program focuses on science and integrating core curricular areas around the study of science with a lot of hands-on creative thinking, critical thinking, problem solving, and it's an opportunity district-wide for students across the district to sign up for this new magnet, giving new choices for families in San Diego Unified. In addition, looking at past practices as well as focusing on new procedure. I attended 2 sessions in Sacramento. One is on the local control funding formula and the accountability plan, and also looking at charter schools and how we can establish and better relationships and make our programs work better. Thirdly, attended the perfect attendance session with Trustee Beiser and Trustee Sharon Whitehurst-Payne to acknowledge the students in Assemblymember Shirley Weber's 79th District, to acknowledge students who had perfect attendance this year, who took the challenge and were less than 3 days absent, 3 or less days absent throughout the school year. Just want to acknowledge students for knowing how important it is to be in school, and when you're in school, you learn, and when you learn, you do well, and we want to support that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. McQuarrie. Dr. Evans?
Thank you. And we just heard the ASB president talking about the Hoover cluster working together and visiting other schools, and someone was just asking me about how the principals in the different clusters are working together. And as I started reviewing, I realized that in University City and Mira Mesa and Claremont and Madison, all the clusters that I frequently visit, one of the main things I've noticed there is that the fact that the principals are working very closely together, that the elementary schools are all working together to jointly prepare the students for middle school and high school. And I think in the last few years, this has been a pretty major accomplishment. Another thing that happens when you go through difficult times, such as the budget situation we've gone through, we find out some of the wonderful things that are going on in the district. And a couple of examples are Cubberley Elementary, who is dealing with a location and classroom availability issue, but the fact that the community was so much behind these neighborhood schools, and they really had some strong supporters. And another one was Gage Elementary, where they were concerned about the budget and the possibility of losing a couple particular teachers. But what came out of the meeting there was just their commitment to a neighborhood school and what they had done themselves in their own neighborhood to really promote their own school. So I think these are both really good signs.
Thank you, Dr. Trustee Beiser.
Thank you, President Barrera. A couple of things. First of all, on Friday, June 23rd, attended the perfect attendance ceremony for only students in the 79th Assembly District with Superintendent Cindy Martin, Trustee McQuarrie, and Trustee Whitehurst-Payne, and began to really try to figure out how do we recognize with the same kind of level the students that are in San Diego Unified that are not in the 79th Assembly District. And so we're partnering and trying to find solutions to that. And the attendance ceremony is not just a certificate and a medallion, like an Olympic medal around the child's neck, but the reward for perfect attendance is you and your whole family can spend the whole day at SeaWorld for free. Your whole family, SeaWorld for free. And so we're going to be working with different folks to try to figure out how do we offer this incentive to every student in San Diego Unified next year. The second event I'd like to report on was on Wednesday, June 21st. I attended a Ramadan Iftar event at Sufi Mediterranean Restaurant with a lot of folks in the community, including several of our students. And then that was culminated in the final Eid event at the Convention Center on Sunday, June 25th. So Eid Mubarak. And then finally, on Monday, June 26th, that was just last night, attended an amazing community meeting with parents, teachers. Superintendent Cindy Martin was there, Area Superintendent Bivens, the Principal Ms. Mitchell, Roy McPhail, 2 members of our FACE, Family and Community Engagement Department were there, and it was a very robust conversation, dialogue for 2.5 hours about how can we make sure that Vista Grande Elementary School in Tirasana continues to thrive and offer amazing programs for their students there. So that's what I have to report for my board report. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Whitehurst-Payne.
Thank you. I'd like to take us back almost 2 weeks ago to graduation and say I did attend the Morse graduation. Mr. Harry, Dr. Shelton is moving on, and the entire administrative team is moving on there. But I want to focus on a couple of things. One, the calendar issue, to be sure, and I see next year we have the same challenge where we have a board meeting the same time as some of the graduations the night before. So it meant that I was unable to attend the Crawford graduation because that's what it's about for us. It's about the end product of the children coming through. And the other thing I want to really focus on is what happened at Lincoln High School. And I think, I'm not sure if it's been in the paper or not, but they had $9.5 million worth of scholarships for their children, for their students. That's phenomenal. And the entire school is to be commended. I really want to focus on the counselors, the AVID teachers, I understand, and most of all, of course, the children and their parents. And I say to those people who don't know whether or not they would like to go to Lincoln High School with that kind of track record of getting scholarships, you might want to take a look at it to see whether or not you can get a scholarship too, because I've never heard of $9.5 million worth of scholarships for the school.
Thank you, Dr. Rose. I think we need a round of applause for the work that. And I'll just quickly report, thank you, Superintendent Martin, for giving us an update on where we are with the water testing. We had a good meeting with our own district staff that's been working on this issue, and and folks from CalPERG and from the UCSD Medical School, and both have committed to working with us on this next phase, with which Superintendent Martin alluded to, which is a plan to mitigate at schools where we have detectable levels, but not, above the EPA level. So we've got community partners that we've reached out to and that are committed to working with us on that plan. So thank you. Okay, we will move to item E1. Can we get a motion to approve the 2017-18 single plans for student achievement? Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? If not, please vote.
I move the consent agenda.
Great. Do we have a second? Item. Okay, any discussion? If not, please vote. Okay, Superintendent, item G4. It's our MOU with AASD.
Thank you. This is to ratify the MOU that we have with the Administrators Association regarding the transfer of sergeant and supervising CSO classifications from POA's contract to the AASD classified unit, and that's in accordance with California Government Code and the bylaws of the Board of Education. Operational issue, and the MOU is we're asking you to ratify that MOU tonight.
Great. Can we get a motion?
So, second.
Dr. McQuarrie moved and Dr. Evans seconded.
Yes.
Thank you. Please vote.
Simultaneously.
Simultaneously. Okay, and I'll look for a motion on item G5, but I hear, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'll move item G5
Yeah.
with one amendment,
Yes.
that we do not have a board meeting when our high schools have graduations. I think that we ought to move our schedule for the kids and not force the high schools to change their schedule around the board meetings.
Thank you. And we've got a second to that motion. Any discussion? If not, please vote. Thank you, Trustee Beiser. Okay, item G6. Can we get a motion on our? Did we?
On the previous one, you didn't vote.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You're on vote.
Oh, thank you. Item G6, this is our board memberships for 2017-18. Do we have a motion?
I move for approval.
Okay, do we have a second? Any discussion? If not, please vote. Okay, item G7.
I'd like to move item G7, the resolution in the matter of establishing a select committee to review the district progress on graduation standards and strategies.
Thank you, Vice President Beiser, and I'll just speak to this quickly. I'm sorry, is there a second?
Second.
Okay. This item we're excited about. The work that's happened in this district for several years now, but particularly over the last few years, as we raised our standards from graduation so that the course sequence, the A to G course sequence, is now the requirement for graduation. That's been some of the most important work that's been going on, certainly in our district. And I believe that there are many strategies that have led to the increased graduation rates and the narrowing of the achievement gap in graduation rates that need to be more fully understood by the public. We've also had questions or criticisms regarding the increase in our graduation rates. I believe those questions or criticisms need to also be understood and addressed publicly. And probably most important, if you look at our mission statement, we talk about all students graduating and then being able to go on and succeed in college or career or both. And I think it's important for us to understand that beyond simply students graduating from high school on time, what are we doing to prepare our students to succeed once they leave our school districts. So in order to have a further public understanding, conversation about all of these issues, this motion tonight is about appointing a select committee of folks who are not from the school district, but folks both locally and nationally who are extremely passionate and bring different perspectives and expertise on this question of graduating students on time and preparing them to succeed. And so we've had a number of highly respected individuals who have agreed to serve on this select committee. And I believe the list of those individuals is public now. So we're excited about getting this committee off the ground. We're hoping that the committee can convene during the summer and can come back to the superintendent and the board with a thorough review of the work that's been done around our graduation rates and preparing students to succeed post-graduation, and any recommendations that this independent committee would be prepared to offer. So that's the idea behind this motion. So we have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Dr. McQuarrie?
Sure. Yeah, definitely want to acknowledge you for bringing this matter up, establishing this esteemed committee, and setting this as a high priority. It's one thing to get our students to graduate. It truly is another thing to make sure that they have the tools necessary to succeed in college, career, and in civic engagement, civic and global engagement. I've long asked for a longitudinal study talking about efficacy. How effective are we in preparing our students for the world? And I think this team and this committee that you have established here are in a position to do that, and thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Evans.
Just to agree briefly at both graduation rate and meaningful graduation, and I think that on the meaningful graduation there are some metrics that we can really look at. One of the things that's the preparation for college is what is the rate of remediation that's required once our students arrive there. It's a little harder to go out a lot of years beyond that in a short report, but there's some sort of immediate ones, and the other is in terms of what's happening in terms of students getting into apprenticeships and other technical careers besides four-year universities, and I think we can get a lot of input from the community colleges on how well we're doing on this, so it's a great opportunity.
Thank you, Dr. Evans. Dr. Whitehurst-Payne?
This is an excellent idea, because I know a lot of the universities are beginning to look at their product.
Yeah.
You go through, you train teachers, you train students, but what happens when they graduate? And so to go back and check. I just want to be sure we understand this is a voluntary group, and we will be covering their expenses, right?
I would hope we don't have expenses.
They can bring their own water bottle. We bring our own water to the board meeting.
That's right. Yeah. Thank you. And Vice President Pfizer?
I think that this is a really important Brown Act committee where the meetings will be noticed. There'll be public meetings, agendas, and conversation topics will be made notified to the public so that they can come in and listen and participate. I want to thank the folks that are going to be participating for their service. As President Barrera had mentioned, this will not be at expense to taxpayers. This is a community service, and we have so many phenomenal members of our community that are willing to step up, that have just very strong backgrounds in education and fighting for kids and making sure that we're providing quality programs. And I also want to echo Dr. Evans' remarks to make sure that I especially underscore what he said about it's not just about college students, but it's about students that go into other things, maybe the trades or other careers or things like that, that are also important metrics to demonstrate student success and performance in life. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'll just quickly read the folks who volunteered to serve on the committee. We've got Dr. Julian Betts from UCSD, Dr. John Brown, Peter Kallstrom, the director of the San Diego Workforce Partnership, Dr. Constance Carroll, the chancellor of the Community College District, Bill Freeman with the California Teachers Association and the National Education Association, Dr. Kira Green, the executive director of the Center on Policy Initiatives, Andrea Guerrero, the executive director of Alliance San Diego, Gary Hocklander, national expert on linked learning, Dr. Joe Johnson, the dean of the School of Education at San Diego State, Mel Katz from the business community, Dr. Pedro Noguera, great national expert from UCLA, and Matt Spathis from the business community as well. So it's a really exciting group of people who are going to undertake this, and we thank them for their service.
I just want to say that's an outstanding group of people. I couldn't have picked a better group myself.
That's right. Okay, so I think we need to vote on this motion. Okay. Okay, item G8. This is a review of the public records request policies and procedures. Dr. Evans.
Yes, the motion here is to ask the superintendent for a report reviewing the procedures for processing public records requests and to develop plans to improve the efficiency of honoring such requests. Now, just to explain, we have a lot of statutes, laws that require us to provide records to the public, but even without the legal requirements, we are committed as a Board of Education to openness and transparency. And one of the things that, because in the broader sense I like in this report, is not just about the specific Public Records Act requests, but a review of all the means in which citizens, parents, and students and everybody can obtain information from the district. I mean, some examples would be asking requests of board members, asking directly to the superintendent, answering questions to the media, going to the school sites, contacting the Office of Quality Assurance. These are all precursors to the need to actually go to the further step of public records requests. And what we want to do is review all types of public records, and that includes a determination of exactly what is a public record, but we could also include emails in terms of how long they should be stored and what should be done with other types of records. What are the costs that are associated with this, how in terms of personnel and time that needs to accomplish this. And then also there's a review of what is done by other public agencies, school districts and other public agencies. And I know the district, the superintendent and staff are already looking at this, and we just want them to continue looking at this and just make the public aware that we're not going to make any changes, if we approve this motion, to existing board policies and district procedures relating to public records requests, including email records, before the board receives and reviews a recommendation from the superintendent, which will be at an open public board meeting, at which point the public will also have an opportunity to weigh in on this. So one detail on this, in terms of having the report as soon as possible, but I would like to first, in terms of the motion, check with the superintendent, given the time of year we're at and the different tasks of the staff and some of the changes that are happening, even as the new fiscal year, what is a reasonable time frame to produce this report and recommendation?
Yeah, there's a team that's been working on looking at these best policies, practices locally and statewide, so I want to engage that team that's been working on it and think about the right timeline for that. So I'd re-engage the team that's already started some research on it, so you need several months to do that.
Okay. It'd be what?
Several months to do that, since not that long. Sorry, so I'm looking at the team that was leading it over there.
Okay. Well, maybe if we could have part of the motion that at the next board meeting you would provide a timeline for the structure of this. We don't have to decide that right now, but at least.
I think that because of the work that's been done by the group that's been working on it, we can act fairly quickly in terms of being able to bring back all of the questions that you've had so that you can take action. I just was looking at the timing and of this next board meeting. If we can put it on that agenda, we will.
Okay. Very good.
Great, and we'll take that as a motion.
Yeah, that's my motion.
And do we have a second? Second. Okay, and we've got several public speakers. So I'll call your names. Lorraine Burley, Kelly Davis, Jenny Rivera, Francine Maxwell, and Tasha Williamson, and you have 2 minutes each.
Good afternoon. My name is Lorraine Burley, and my information is on file. I appreciate you folks pulling this and discussing this tonight. 30 days to change the district email retention policy is quite shocking. And as a speaker for Voice of Scripps Ranch, we have experienced continued denied or delayed public record requests. Some of the record requests had taken over 14 months to receive documentation. I think you're a public institution and you should promote open and easy access to public records. You should train your employees not to have questionable information hanging around on their computers. You should have no information there that people would be concerned about. I think 2 years is a suitable length of time to retain email data, because after 2 years, most people are done with that work project. Some projects take 6 months to 12 months. Which, by the way, if people do a public record request and email is not on the main district server, they could also request email on their private laptop as well. So email can still be obtained. The statement that the district said about not enough disk space, that's an outdated IT problem. The district shouldn't be having that problem. We have Prop S and Z bond funds. There's plenty of money there to build robust IT solutions, and I think San Diego residents expect a robust IT solution, and if they say there's server overloads, that's yet another IT mismanagement problem, and that needs to be addressed. And fortunately, we do have voter support with bond money for technology, so that shouldn't be an issue. Thank you.
Hi, Jenny Rivera, Daylord Elementary School teacher. When I got the email myself, I think it was in early June, saying that emails would be deleted, 6-month-old emails deleted as of July 1st. The first thing I thought about was how I use email within my classroom for parent communication. And sure, there's run-of-the-mill emails that mean nothing, but there's also emails from parents that we go back and forth for the entire school year. And of course, as we all know, in the elementary setting, you have those students for 10 months, not 6 months. So as a teacher, I want to have a record of my communications with parents. It could be anything from the student's academic progress to social, emotional development, all those kind of things. I have had to go back and search my emails and see what did I say to that parent earlier in this year so that I can make sure that we're still on the same track or the correct track for their student. And so if I have to worry about, gosh, did I get an email in September, October, and now it's April, and is that still there? What I'm going to have to do is to start printing them out, which really seems like backwards thinking. It seems more costly to me. Every time I send an email, I need to print it out and then save it in a file regarding that student. And I just don't think it's the right move to promote school community, not community, to promote documentation that is often needed for students. And even as I have a colleague here with me in an upper grade level, sometimes as those students move through the grade levels, we need to refer back to what was started in one grade level and needs to be finished in another grade level for the students. So destroying emails after 6 months just does not seem like a practical idea, let alone all the board issues that go on with that. But on a personal level for school, it's just going to make teachers' lives more complicated, more difficult, and there'll be less ability to reflect on the students.
Good evening. My name is Kelly Davis, and I'm here tonight on behalf of the San Diego chapter of the Society of Professional Journalists. First, I'd like to thank board members Barrera and Evans for calling for a review of the district's public records policies. Recently, the Society of Professional Journalists publicly raised concerns about challenges faced by reporters and the public when trying to get information from the district. In light of this, we were even more concerned to hear about the administration's proposal to change the district's email retention policy. Retaining emails for only 6 months is far less than the norm for large California school districts. Other major districts retain emails for at least 2 years, an acknowledgement of the public's right to have access to such documents. The Society of Professional Journalists hopes the full school board will urge greater transparency, and we welcome the opportunity to offer feedback and suggestions if the district indeed pursues a review of its public information policies. And I have a copy of the statement that the SPJ board recently released.
Thank you.
Francine Maxwell, what are we trying to hide here? Are we trying to hide, once again, how quality assurance should have been dissolved? Because quality assurance does nothing for the public. They do nothing for the parents. They regurgitate the answer that the parent received from the principal. So that's a non-factor department that should have went away during the budget cut times. We talk about public integrity. We talk about storage issues, IT. The bottom line is, in a world where we need transparency to build relationships and trust, the one thing that the public can count on is making sure when they need something from San Diego Unified that you'll have to wait a year. I sit on a coalition that waited 15 months to get something, and when they gave it to us, it was redacted, didn't point to what we really needed, and then it was said, oh, you can go online and find all the answers. The website is not friendly. The website has been gutted twice. We've spent a lot of money gutting that website, but it sure is funny how everybody still has the same email. So why did we pay somebody to gut a website, but everybody kept the same email and a whole bunch of things didn't change? That's mismanagement, once again, of our funds. So let's get down to it and be serious and have a real conversation. Why would I want to only hold things for 6 months? Because there's some people that are coming down the pipeline that is going to be asking for something from 2 years ago. We want to know the websites that were searched. We want to know different things. And if it's already wiped away, then we can't expose the lack of integrity that has been occurring here at San Diego Unified, the mismanagement, the fiscal mismanagement, and we won't even talk about the auditors because we want the county to do, we want the federal government to do an audit on San Diego Unified with all these created departments and girlfriends with all these new titles that don't have boots on the ground with our children. So I think that I can't wait for it to come back on the agenda so that we can have a robust discussion and we can all agree to disagree collectively.
Hi, Tasha Williamson. For me, it's about credibility. This school district has lost its credibility, and it continues to do so with getting rid of your public stuff that's public records, which is your emails to each other and to others, how you do business through emails, by doing away with that in 6 months. Any business with transparency should have that open. And I want to look to the fact that I'll be asking for some public records because I want to understand how the Knox Middle School students who were failing were promoted because the area superintendent was attending the promotion and what emails went back and forth with that. How do kids promote that are not promotion worthy? I want to understand the restorative department, a restorative department that has one employee and no budget, and what emails went back and forth to determine and dictate that, and where does the funding go that was allocated towards restorative when Cindy Martin said that your district was restorative. There were emails that went back and forth for over a 2-year period, and to get rid of those in 6 months, you guys have done a disservice, especially to people in District E, with the things that you continue to do. And getting rid of emails that would prove that or disprove that is still not transparency. So if you truly want to be transparent, as you said, Mr. Evans, then everything should be public record and should be open and available for longer terms than 6 months. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we have a motion and a second on item G8. Any board discussion? Trustee Beiser?
I want to thank Dr. Evans and President Barrera for putting this item on the board agenda. I'm sure that I'm not the only trustee that also wanted to have this conversation this evening. In talking to a lot of educators and teachers and staff members in the school, you want to be able to go back and look at emails or parent communication about a student for the duration of that school year. So that might be something to take into consideration. And then I think there are other considerations in looking around at other school districts and what is their email retention policy. Just trying to, and that's why I really appreciate this motion, because this motion is trying to get information so that we can then have an informed decision as we move forward. So thank you very much, Dr. Evans and President Barrera, for that. Thank you.
Thank you. No further comment, please vote. The vote passes 5-0, but Ms. Donovan, did you want to weigh in?
No, that's okay. We can address it in the report that we bring back to you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, we'll now move on to item H1. This is our public hearing and adoption of our proposed 2017 to 20 local control and accountability plan. This is our second reading. We had a full discussion both at our workshop and then again 2 weeks ago, so I will open the public hearing. And Superintendent Martin, would you like to present the item?
Thank you. As you said, President Barrera, that we discussed it at a full-day workshop and again last week. And as we continue with open sessions and hearings and community input on this item reflects some of the changes that were made even since the first read, specifically some input that we received from SDEA, for example. Actually, all of the changes are listed in the board item, a summary of the changes to the LCAP since the first read. Specifically, some input that we received from our Teachers Association was to include under Goal 5, stakeholder review and feedback opportunities on the LCAP implementation and development. Will encourage that to occur at the site level through school site councils and school site governance teams. And we also received feedback around central office departments being able to develop more customer-friendly systems and improve response times to district employees and external stakeholders while striving to reach solutions at the lowest possible level. We added those two, and there's actually several more bullets of things. I just wanted to call those specific ones out. As I presented before, our LCAP is focused on our key goals of our district. Goal 1 being closing the achievement gap with high expectations for all, and our approaches around early literacy, support for secondary students to have access to higher level coursework, and students with disabilities. A focus in that area is how we work on closing the achievement gap. Our second goal is access and commitment to access to a broad and challenging curriculum, specifically with our VAPA program and learning by doing, knowing that we believe in whole child learning and that students learn in a context where they get to learn and they get to have work-based learning experiences and internships. Goal 3 was about quality leadership, teaching, and learning. We focused specifically on leadership development using our equity levers, cultural proficiency, equity leadership, student-centered coaching cycles, and the professional learning communities that we establish across the district. Our fourth goal is positive school environment, climate, and culture. We work to create our comprehensive, this LCAP commits to our comprehensive school guidance counseling program and continuing the work that we established this year in the elementary counseling pilot and extending more collaboration and coherence in counseling across the system. Our restorative practices, our reconnection center, our efforts around LGBTQIA supports, and family and youth advocacy along with student wellness, health and wellness with our wellness initiatives and our wellness centers. All of those are in Goal 4, positive school environment, and Goal 5, our family and community engagement with highly regarded neighborhood schools, what meaningful engagement and participation looks like. We had an update from Stan Anjan about what that looks like across the district, and our district pathways, the programs that we know our families desire so much around IB programs, dual language programs, and our STEAM pathways in particular. Dr. Mike referred to some coverage we had recently at Montgomery Middle School. That was an example of the pathways and continuing to invest in that. The theme of our LCAP, and you can see the posters around the walls here. This is a new graphic that we added since the first read that shows specifically by goal what the, in each goal area, what the expected and actual work was in terms of our goals, actions, and expenditures, and then we broke it down by each goal and the dollar amounts attached to it to make it even more clear. And this came back from feedback at the previous meeting at the LCAP workshop, and we're continuing to listen to that to make sure that what we're presenting, how we're committing our dollars, our programs, our actions and services are being clearly articulated in every venue that we have. So this is the second read, and it feels like more than that because we've been talking about it for a long time, but it's all come together, and I know that as we implement these programs and services next year for students, the theme of our district is around building capacity, using student-centered approaches where we have student voice at the center of what we're doing, student empowerment, integrating the services so that we're calibrated across the district. Equity and access has always been a theme. The reconnection efforts have been incredibly important, and our commitment to unlocking the genius for each and every student ends up being a theme throughout all these goal areas.
Okay, thank you, Superintendent Martin. Can we get a motion to approve our local control and accountability plan?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, and we've got some speakers, Anne Marie Haney, Holly Churchill, Dean Hickman, and Matthew Mulvaney, and you have 2 minutes each.
Good afternoon. As you know, I've been very pleased to see the emphasis on educating the whole child and ensuring access to a broad curriculum. And for many years, the arts have been identified as core curriculum by both the state and our local school board. in recognition of their important role in the development of the whole child. But as I see under Goal 2, access to a broad and challenging curriculum, there is a matrix column on the left-hand side. I don't know how many of you have looked at it over and over again, but I have. And it lists access and completion of CCTE courses and AP and IB and college classes. There is no mention of VAPA in that matrix. And I'm afraid the message then to the school sites is that the emphasis has to be in those areas. I heard you say just now about VAPA's emphasis, but it's not in print in the document. There is a description about that you approved, the ongoing VAPA. Isn't that something? If I didn't write it down, I can't keep it in my brain. The Strategic Arts Plan, hello. But that's sort of a little addition that came in with the second draft, but it isn't part of the core of the document, so I hope to see it in print. What we're seeing now is that students are channeled into the pathways and have no time in their schedules for an arts class. And they meet the arts curriculum need requirement with a CCTE technology class, which isn't the same experience for the development of the child. And I just want to add life readiness to our goals for what we hope for these children, because I have shared with you some of our children's experiences in the corporate world with people who didn't get much life readiness training. They're very difficult to work with. And I have a little article from the University of Michigan Medical School. They're teaching piano skills to the medical students because they teach empathy and sensitivity for them to relate to their patients.
Thanks. Thank you, Anne Marie.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. As a San Diego Unified parent and professional in San Diego's theater and arts industries, my main concern is the CCTE Academy.
Can you just give us your name?
Oh, sure. Sorry. Holly Churchill.
Thank you, Holly.
Sorry. My main concern is that the CCTE academies be flexible enough to meet the needs of all students and that they provide every student with exposure to the visual and performing arts. My family moved away and soon returned to the area, so my teen had begun taking different lab science and history classes, course sequence other than that of her peers from the San Diego Unified Local School that has CCTEs. We were told by the local school administrator that because of the requirements of linked learning academies and the associated linked learning funding, that in order to attend that school, my teen must take the exact same classes in the exact same periods with the exact same teachers as her peers were taking. So to get into the proper sequence of classes, my teen would have to take an independent I-High course, a summer high course, summer school study hall to sit out some portion of the school day. And to me, these inflexible options were and are not acceptable. The CCTE pathways were obligatory, not optional, so we had to change schools even to another cluster to a place where the academies are optional and to where we can avoid such cumbersome hoops. Families move, and I believe it's not right to punish each student simply because they come from another school or a district and because they've taken classes that are out of sequence. So I ask that CCTE classes pathways remain optional and flexible. Arts, tech, and media arts are also important and prevalent in our daily culture, but they're not a substitute for the more traditional visual and performing arts courses. I believe that a VAPA course should remain a graduation requirement, art, band, orchestra, choir, and dance, for example. Without requiring VAPA in a CCTE academy, students won't have the exposure, and without experiencing it, they won't enroll in the course offerings will dwindle and eventually become extinct. Unless a student has the funds to take private lessons or moves to another arts-friendly charter school or a school in North County or East County, and that does happen, they will not know the wonder of the arts experience in their education. Emotional IQ, increased spatial intelligence, improved memory, teamwork, problem solving, ear training, anxiety, stress reduction, public speaking skills, physical healing, friendship building, and more are all the outcome of being a part of a singing or performing arts group. So I ask that VAPA be part of it as much as PE is required in school. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Dean Hickman. As a retired teacher of 8 years and a former district and county teacher of the year, I'm no longer involved in the district on a day-to-day basis. But as a BITSA support provider and a concerned alumnus of this district, I want to make sure that we're always making our priorities in the interest of providing our students with a complete education. My issue today is the support of using LCAP funds to move CCTE programs forward at the expense of giving students an all-around opportunity in their high school years. I truly wonder how many 14-year-olds know exactly what they want for a career and are willing to sacrifice other experiences to achieve it. I admit that I did know what I wanted to be when I was 14, a high school band director. Now, over 50 years later, I can say that I was indeed able to do exactly that. I was not in a program, though, that limited me to only music during those years. I took a wide variety of subjects and went on to the University of California to earn a degree in mathematics. That degree led me to spend 6 years as a nuclear-trained officer aboard a fleet ballistic missile submarine, prior to my coming to San Diego to get my teaching credential. What followed was a 33-year career of teaching both math and music. By placing students in a strictly set curriculum and not providing them other enriching experiences, I strongly feel that you are doing both the student and the district short service. If you're going to pursue the CCTE agendas, at least require that there be some leeway for soul-enriching subjects outside of that curriculum. I'm talking about the arts, yearbook, ASB, and similar offerings. I fear that what we'll be creating is a one-path adult in a world of a myriad of paths. Will you not allow these students to at least look at the road not taken? Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Matt Mulvaney. I'm a San Diego City resident and an employee in the San Diego Unified School District. And first, I'd like to say that I'm not here to object to the LCAP, although that's not an option on the public speaker request form. Second, I'd like to offer my thanks to Superintendent Martin and the board for their support of arts education programs here in the San Diego Unified School District. I'm here just to mention a couple things. In a March 2016 entry on the San Diego Union Tribune titled "Time to Embrace Arts Education is a Priority," Superintendents Martin and Escobedo note that their district initiatives clearly demonstrate arts education programs promote student engagement, parental involvement, and improve student climate and significant student achievement. These sound just like they were taken out of our Vision 2020 12 indicators of quality schools, right? Which you guys are very familiar. Second, more recently in June of this year, just a couple weeks back, commenting on the budget considerations, Superintendent again noted that while we focus on fundamentals like helping every child read at grade level by third grade, and we want to continue to provide enrichment art opportunities in the arts and music to nourish the development of the whole child. We are committed that the central office expenses would be cut before anything else and pledge that students will still have access to our IB, dual language, arts, and other programs. So I'm just here to say that as we implement the LCAP, I hope we will retain the flexibility that we can meet the strategic arts plan guiding principle number 1, which is all students have equitable access to arts education. So I'm not here to advocate against the LCAP. I'm just here to say that I hope as we implement the LCAP and we look to offer all these wonderful programs for our students, we maintain a spot for arts education for all of our families and all of our students here in San Diego. So again, thank you for your support of arts education. I just hope that's something that will continue to be promoted and made available to all of our students, independent of which path they choose to take.
Thank you, Matt. Okay, we've got a motion and a second to approve the LCAP. Board comments or questions? Dr. McQuarrie?
Just an overall structural comment. If we take a look at E1, which was the single plan for student achievement, that is the school budget, about where monies go for what program services people at the school. So people want to take a look at E1 to get a school site sense. The H1 is the LCAP, which is what we're considering right now, which is the effort to identify priorities. We can't do everything, so we want to do the best we can to acknowledge the input that the stakeholders have provided, and as well as including best practices and what works best for our students in order to meet our Vision 2020 goals. In addition, then, the one we will follow is the adoption of the budget, which is how the funding does follow the LCAP. and then we'll take a look at H3, which is the Title I and how the Title I rolls out. So these 4 items are absolutely critical. It tells us what money comes from where does it go, how does it show up at the school, for which program and which people. It's a very comprehensive set. So someone who wants to take a look at our budget, find out where the money goes and why, they can take a look at these items and this board agenda for today specifically.
Thank you, Dr. McClure. Dr. Evans?
Yes. Well, first of all, just in relation to some of the speakers, I certainly do not consider the arts, including music, to be merely an enrichment program, although it is enriching. But mathematics and science are also enriching. But I understand the idea of kind of separating it out would be a big concern as we're focusing on educating the whole child. What I want to say is, in terms of this local control accountability plan and update, I really appreciate what the staff has done in terms of really making this user-friendly. We have so many documents that are difficult for me to read through, much less the general lay public in terms of what's going on. And this document, which we haven't gone through slide by slide because it would take most of the evening, but is available to the public, it really outlines, on the front page, $1,316,678,709, and where is that money going. But the difference, I think, and we'll talk about the budget later, but the thing I really appreciate that we've shifted over to is we have these academic goals for the development of our students, and then we're tying that to the dollars that we are spending, rather than this school gets this much money, or this program, and this line, and so forth and so forth. We really want it to have it linked to what we're actually accomplishing and doing. I think there will be more details later when we look at the budget and the local control funding and formula in terms of how those funds are utilized. But I just think that this is very important. I think another thing when people look through this, just to realize, it says repeatedly expected and actual. So for example, it's a high school graduation rate, it said expected 89.9, the actual is 91.2. But the 89.9 was not the past graduation rate. The 89.9 was the goal that we set a few years ago for the graduation rate, which we surpassed. So some of the goals we exceeded, some of the goals we met, some of the goals we didn't meet, but I would say in most of the goals that we didn't meet, we also made progress. We just didn't go quite as far as we thought. So I think this is an example of transparency, of showing where we did very well and where we didn't do as well, and what money is going into each goal that we're doing. And I think the whole point of the transparency is to have this at a high level, but also available for people who want to dig in at every level, what's going on at this school, where is the money coming, that also needs to be available, and I know it will be, and just as we get into discussing the budget. But it's a big shift from just talking about budgets and line items to actually talking about what we're accomplishing with the children and how the funds are allocated.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Evans. Dr. Whitehurst-Payne?
I think with one of those attachments that we had, all the schools are available with all the expenditures.
Right.
I mean, like the high schools was almost 1,000 pages, and the elementary schools were close to 4,000. I don't remember what the middle school was,
but they can dig down into it.
you can dig down. You can
Line by line.
Yes, you can now dig down into it, and for each department. But what I wanted to say is I like the change. I like the additional information. The numbers are there. I do thank staff for responding to that. And I like your report, John, your request that PIO did, the public office did, communications. That's a good report. But what I would like to just ask us all to think about what Mrs. Anne Marie Haney brought up about the fact that sometimes we're squeezing kids out of the arts. We just need to be real. And there's a way we can make the day more elongated so that we can get all the classes in. When I was in school 100 years ago, you had to choose a track, and if you were on a certain track, you couldn't get to take some other classes. So if there's a way we can expand or look at ways to help schools to facilitate getting it in so that kids can be in the band and still do a pathway or still get their academics in without having to give it up. And that's reality. I mean, if you're only limited to a certain number of classes in the traditional model, then they're not going to be able to get them. So just kind of keeping that thought in mind as we go forward. Thank you.
Did you want to, yes?
Thank you for that, Dr. Whitehurst-Payne. We believe that the direction that we're heading in is not going to eliminate the arts. And when we look at LCAP Goal 1, close the achievement gap, and LCAP Goal 2, broaden challenge curriculum, it's not LCAP Goal 1 or LCAP Goal 2.
Right.
It's LCAP Goal 1, close the achievement gap, and our commitment to a broad and challenging curriculum. And the kinds of, when I talked about the big themes of our LCAP, unlocking the genius, giving each and every student what he or she needs in the way that they need it, when they need it, is our definition of equity and the supports across the system. And I also talk about a coherent and aligned system. No longer do we have a VAPA department that works in isolation. We work together as school teams and school leaders, and I think the way we move forward is working with that 5-year strategic plan for the arts and our commitments that we have for students to be college and career ready. And I'm using the word "and" as we figure out how to do that, and I know the conversations between Mr. Sperling and Ms. Hiblin and the area superintendents that need to happen to be able to deliver on the promises that we make in LCAP Goal 1 and in LCAP Goal 2, and what that will look like. And we are not eliminating the arts. In fact, our investment and our considerable focus on this is a matter of figuring out how to do it, school by school and in school communities.
Right. And I just don't want Anne Marie losing sleep over us.
No, we can't have that.
And if I could just make one comment add to that, I mean, I think one example of that, we came across this in the middle schools where there's the issue of taking a language versus taking music. And one, I know at Stanley Middle School what they did was they offered an additional period for basically an additional early period because they had a late start for language, and that allowed them to do it. So I think that's the kind of solutions that you're talking about creatively to make sure it's not either or.
Trustee Beiser.
Thank you, President Barrera. I really appreciate comments from the community and Marie Haney and making sure that our commitment to music and the arts is steadfast. Especially, I want to thank Mr. Mulvaney for reminding us of what our commitment is in the Strategic Arts Plan, guiding principle number 1. That all students have equitable access to the arts education. And that's what I'm really excited about, because if you look at our budget, next year we're going to have music in 100% of the elementary schools, and that's phenomenal. And I'm also really excited about plans that I've heard from Russ Sperling, the director of VAPA for the school district, and Superintendent Cindy Martin, to make sure that children that will be going to Claremont High School will have access to band, and that the future plan is to make sure they have a vibrant band and orchestra program at Claremont High School. Because I think the commitment, I can't speak for the whole board, but I know the sense of my colleagues and the passion and the values that we have at this board is to make sure that all of our comprehensive high schools do offer a variety of options for kids, so that if they do want to take career pathways, that's something that they can do, and it's not going to squeeze them out necessarily of other opportunities. And I think that's the direction that we're going, and we're going to continue on that path. I believe that this LCAP doesn't preclude that we can still continue our passion and our vision for the arts in all of our schools, because we want all the neighborhood schools to offer a broad and challenging curriculum, including the arts. And so one thing I did want to point out is, the work that the school district and the staff is doing to make our schools LCAP goal for positive school environments, because it has to be an environment where children feel welcome and they feel safe. And so I'm really excited about a lot of the continued dedication in the budget towards the Family and Community Engagement Department and the work that they do to get more people involved to providing quality schools, and the partnerships that we have to make sure that we have a climate and a culture of safety, inclusive, where we value diversity, and that bullying and those kinds of hateful philosophies really need to be dealt with in a positive way, so that we can help children learn from such things and make it a teachable moment to help everybody become contributing positive members of society as they grow up into adulthood. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice President Beisler. And I just, again, would echo the appreciation for the staff in producing a clear and transparent document that links our spending to our goals and our outcomes. And I think this document really moves us forward in that. And I also echo the comments of the board members and the superintendent that a broad and challenging curriculum is intended to be inclusive. It's not to be broad or challenging, and to be broad is not to have availability of career pathways or VAPA or language or ethnic studies or English or math or science. It's a broad curriculum is something that includes all of it, and that all of our students need to have access to an actually broad and challenging curriculum, and I know that is the intention of the superintendent. So this reflects, our LCAP reflects building on prior years of moving forward in key priority areas, and is, I think, extremely clear in showing the district's commitment to these priority areas as we discuss our budget next. So I appreciate the work of the superintendent and the staff.
I was going to just add one more thing that Trustee Beiser reminded me of in terms of public input and opportunities for input. We talked at the full-day workshop and then at the public hearings. There's some statutory requirements for input that, of course, we follow, but we've had almost 50 opportunities, or actually more than that, but specifically 14 public reports throughout the year to the Board of Education, 16 cluster meetings monthly to give input on the LCAP, 3 LCAP planning team meetings, the DAC and the DLAC meeting monthly to get information and reports on that. And then the reason why I said more than that is because the online survey is always on, so that's endless opportunities for people to give their input. And then we've received that input and we outline the changes and put it in the public document so people can see the opportunities for engagement and input all throughout the year that go well beyond the statutory requirements by the state.
Thank you, Superintendent. Dr. Evans, did you have one?
Yeah, I just wanted to make a comment, and we're lauding you for this report, but one of the things about the report is it's not a whitewash of everything is wonderful. And we set ambitious goals, and we don't always meet all of our goals. And I'm just looking at goals, on goals 4 and 5 with the school climate surveys, and there are a lot of things there that are reported that are very concerning. I mean, in terms of reporting caring relationships, about a third of the students report that that's the case, which means 2/3 say not. In terms of high expectations, in a couple of the surveys, about half of the students don't believe that there are high expectations, and go on and on about in terms of safety. A certain number of students don't feel safe and so forth. This is what Trustee Beiser was saying in relation to ongoing issues with bullying and so forth. So this is a very good and transparent document that shows where we still have a lot more work to do, and it's available for everybody to see.
Thank you.
I really want to piggyback on what Dr. Evans said, and he was spot on, because this is information that allows us to look at opportunities to improve, and then for the staff to then develop action plans to address those concerns that are revealed as a result of some of the things in the student surveys. And that's why I believe that this board has voted unanimously to make sure that we continue these student surveys and staff surveys and community surveys, so we can we have a good feedback loop on how are we doing and what can we do better.
Thank you. Without further comment, please vote on the LCAP. Great, and the public hearing is closed. And we'll now open the public hearing on item H2, and this is the adoption of our 2017-18 budget. And again, this is a second reading. Superintendent Martin.
Thank you. Our CFO, Gammy Rayburn, is coming up. This is a second read, so there are not a lot of changes to that, but she can update you on any of the specific changes that happened since the last time. But while she's coming up, I'll say that another document that we added between first and second read was based on public input and feedback that we heard around the supplemental and concentration dollars in particular, and folks wanting to know where are the supplemental concentration dollars, how do you allocate them, and we wanted to provide this particular addition, this PowerPoint that shows specifically what are the base grant dollars, how do we use the base grant, and then what's the difference between base grant funding and supplemental and concentration funding. So without going through the whole PowerPoint slide by slide, we did add that additional detail so people can see specifically examples of how at school sites what the base grant pays for and what supplemental and concentration pays for, and at central office what the base grant and what supplemental and concentration pays for, and specifically what would happen if we didn't have that, and how do we implement those dollars to make sure that the students who have the specific needs where we have the concentration of need, we're able to allocate the services and programs and dollars in those ways, and this adds additional detail to that as well.
Thank you. Board members, district staff, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. This is the second reading of the district's 2017-18 budget, and tonight we're going to ask the board to approve the budget. Okay, my agenda will cover the actions that are required tonight. I will touch a little bit on what Superintendent Martin just said, and then again, the multi-year year assumptions that we actually discussed in detail last time.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to discuss that in detail again tonight. And then I have a slide on the 2018-19 proposed budget solutions and the recommended budget proposal. And then I'll touch on the tax revenue anticipation note, which you also have to approve tonight, and our next timeline, actions on our timeline. Okay, so this is, tonight we are asking the board to approve the proposed 2017-18 district budget and to approve a motion of your intent to certify positive, meaning that the district will be able to meet its financial obligations for the 2017-18 fiscal year and 2 subsequent fiscal years. And the earliest you'll be able to officially do this is on the first interim reporting period. Superintendent Martin showed you a separate document regarding the local control funding formula. You just approved the district's LCAP, and to help understand how LCFF is used to fund programs in the district, we provided some information which was added as a separate document, which the superintendent just showed you. And it describes how LCFF works and explains the requirement for minimum proportionality. It also provides information how LCFF funds are used, what is considered base, and what our supplemental and concentration grants are paying for. It explains that the district is above the 55% level for unduplicated pupils, so that the district may use their supplemental and concentration grants district-wide. So we invite all those who are interested to read this document, and we hope the information is helpful, and we hope that it answers some of the questions regarding the use of the district's LCFF funds. The next 2 slides are the assumptions we used in the budget and the multi-year projections. There are no changes to the revenues as well as the expenditure assumptions since the first reading of the budget. They are based on the guidance from the San Diego County Office of Education and the Governor's May revision. If there are significant changes in the state enacted budget, which we heard was just signed today, we will submit an amended budget to the board within 45 days of the budget adoption, of the state budget adoption. So I explained during the first reading of the budget that we still need to identify $46.4 million of solutions to balance the 2018-19 budget. You have indicated your resolve to balance the budget and certify positive at the first interim period. Listed here are the proposed solutions to balance the 2018-19 budget. This information will be provided to the San Diego County Office of Education to demonstrate your intent to certify positive early next year. So last time, at the first reading of the budget, I talked about the structural deficit. And I was asked to clarify the difference between budget deficit and the structural deficit. So in response to this request, I provided this explanation. I tried to make it as simple as I can to explain a very complex item. So a budget deficit is the amount by which the budget expenditures exceed revenues in any one fiscal year. When we calculate the budget deficit, we include the beginning balance and we include the required reserves. So this is probably what is most familiar to a lot of folks. On the other hand, structural deficit is the amount by which ongoing expenditures exceed ongoing revenues. And structural deficit can exist over a period of time, not only within a fiscal year. This occurs when, and also structural deficit can exist even in a balanced budget. So this occurs when solutions to balance the budget are one-time revenues and the expenditures are ongoing. So it fixes the budget deficit for the year, but it doesn't fix the structural deficit. So the district's structural deficit, as I've said previously, was significantly reduced. It was $128 million at one time, and it's going to be reduced to $11 million next year because most of the solutions that you approved to balance the 2017-18 budget are ongoing. So our structural deficit was significantly reduced. And to just clarify one more thing, the 2017-18 budget is balanced. It is balanced. The structural deficit is reduced to about $11 million next year. Okay, so this is the multi-year budget projection for general fund unrestricted. Nothing's changed. I have discussed this in detail last time, so I won't go through them again tonight. I also mentioned last time the financial risk that we still face. I'm not going to go through each one of them. I'm just going to call to your attention a couple of things we added. One is the separation cost for the employees who were laid off. We were able to include in the budget the cost of the people who took the SERP, their vacation payout. We also have to determine or calculate the cost of the salary protection for all of our classified employees. And we are not going to know that until all the bumping and reassignments are complete. This is the total general fund multi-year projections. It includes not only the unrestricted portion of the general fund, which you've seen last time, but it also includes all the restricted grants and other restricted programs. The total general fund budget is the $1.37 billion. And in addition to the unrestricted reserve for economic uncertainties, the 2017-18 reserve includes $35.1 million, which is all of the restricted reserves for those grants and restricted programs. And this reserve, as I've said, is restricted and it's not going to be available for general purposes. The 2017-18 total general fund is balanced with projected reserves totaling $62.3 million. This slide is required by the Education Code, and we are providing you with this statement of reason that substantiate the need for assigned and unassigned ending fund balance in excess of the minimum reserve standard for economic uncertainties. And the fund balance is in excess of the minimum reserve by $2 million, which is designated for school site accounts. Okay, the district's total budget for all funds, all the funds that we currently have, is $3.4 billion. This is the budget, including all of the reserves. All the funds are balanced, and all of the funds have positive ending balances. Our tax revenue anticipation note. An item on your agenda tonight is to approve the trans resolution and the preliminary official statement. The resolution authorizes the sale of not to exceed $250 million in notes. This is Series A and B. Based on our cash flow projections, we need $195 million to bridge our cash needs from July to December when we receive our property taxes. The option to issue the remaining $50 million Series B notes will only be exercised if there is a need to do so. The first repayment of the trans note will be made sometime in January, and the final payment will be made in April. We did our rating presentation to Standard & Poor's earlier this week, and we did receive our rating today, actually, and we are able to maintain our high trans rating of SP1+.
Right.
That's another piece of good news. Okay, this is our total general fund cash flow, and our cash flow for 2017-18 includes the trans borrowing of $195 million and all the budget solutions that you approved. It does not include any revenue deferrals, and it is subject to some changes based on EPA adjustments at P2 certification. We are projecting to end the 2017-18 cash balance of $160 million. So next on our timeline is the tonight, your adoption of this budget and the trans resolution. And then on July 1st, we need to forward the adopted budget to the county and the LCAP as well. And then on July 25th, our trans issuance. That's the end of my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Gammy. We've got one public speaker, Tasha Williamson. And while Tasha's coming up, can we get a motion and a second to approve our 17-18?
So moved for approval.
Okay. Tasha, you have 3 minutes.
One, I want to just say that with the LCAP and the things that you presented, you did not present it in this way when you came to District E. Whitehurst Payne is familiar with that. It was very confusing to the parents and staff in District E, the budget. It wasn't detailed, it was unprofessional. And this budget doesn't tell me where every dollar goes. Again, I'm going to talk about how you give a lot of fluff, like a show. We have a restorative department with one person, and I didn't even see where they were included in the budget. I don't even know what the amount of money they're getting in your budget for 2018. I know that you have a department with one person with no budget, and that Cindy Martin said that you were a restorative school district. I know that your suspension and expulsion rates have increased at Lincoln High School to be a restorative school district. Federal and state dollars should warrant a full investigation into the practices of this San Diego Unified School District. Children are graduating at 91.2% rate, but almost 85% have admitted they are not prepared for career, what you call career, or college. So when we talk about career, we are 100 years ago preparing students to go into factory jobs, and 100 years later preparing kids to go into low minimum wage jobs. I don't see that as a success. While you are on break, again, we will be protesting. We will be asking churches, mosques, and centers to open their doors for massive walkouts in 2017, 2018. We will ask retired teachers to volunteer to help educate our children. When we talk about the lead in the drinking water, you gave some information on the news, but there was absolutely nothing that said if you tested the students or the staff who drank that water. None of you drank lead water. Lead is an irreparable brain impact that happens. And I have not heard anything, it's not even in the budget, about how you're going to deal with that. So, we will ask attorneys to leverage class action lawsuits into your negligence, to ensure quality education is provided to students, negligence to regard the equitable safety of all in campuses in your districts, and the retaliatory tactics used against employees who speak up. We will further ask for the negligent practices against students with IEPs. We're done talking.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second on our 2017-18 budget. Why don't we call it on H4? On that, yeah. Board members, any further questions or comments? Yeah. Trustee Weiser?
Yeah, I do have a couple comments. First of all, I do want to thank the staff and GAMI and everybody in the Finance Department for all of their work. I do have a couple quick questions. So you had talked about the trans note, and first we're going to go for $195 million, and then you'd mentioned that our trans note rating on the bond market or whatever was SB1+. What does that mean to us as a district in terms of how much interest we have to pay on that trans loan?
So that means that we are able to issue our notes with lower interest rates, and we save money.
Right.
Yes.
Do you have any idea about how much impact that might be in terms of savings or taxpayer dollars there?
We have not done that. We haven't done the we will be pricing the notes on the 11th.
Okay.
So perhaps at that time we will know.
Okay. Because I think that would be really important to help us understand because of this financial position that we're in, we're able to have such a good rating and get lower rates. I think it's one thing to say that, but I would really appreciate, at some point in time to get an idea from of what did that mean in terms of dollars? How much, had the rating changed and gone down,
yes,
we would have to pay higher interest rates, and that's not the case here. So I'd like to try to understand, the difference there,
yes,
so we can continue on that path. The second question I had is you had talked a little bit about how we're, that this budget has a $31 million restricted reserves.
Right.
Could you talk a little bit about the difference between restricted and general fund and where that money can be spent?
Yes. The restricted reserves are ending balances from they are grants. They could be some restricted programs, like Title I is one of those restricted programs. And we're not going to be able to use that balance for any of our general purposes because there are some rules and some regulations tied to that money. Very specific rules from the granting agency, and they actually tell us exactly how that money is going to be used. Sometimes when we apply for a grant, we tell them we're going to use this money for this particular program. It's going to be spent for, and we list all of those things, and we need to comply with all of those requirements.
Good.
Right.
Okay, thank you. And then in terms of the other ending fund balance, I think you said we need to report on the ending fund balance for the general fund. So I believe you had mentioned that that was pretty much where it needed to be with the required reserves.
Right. We are required to maintain a 2% reserve for economic uncertainties.
Right.
And it's required because of the number of students we have. And the only excess reserve is $2 million, which is actually designated for schools.
Right.
These are monies that schools own. were given to them, and they
Okay.
are carryovers.
All right, thank you very much. And then one last question, just real quick. I know that in July, we're going to be looking at mitigation plan and things
Yes.
like that for the lead. Is there money in the budget to take care of that?
When I spoke to Drew and his team, he has a concept about how we'll be able to do that, and he's ready to bring that forward in July.
Yeah, so then that won't be an issue.
No.
Right, thank you very much. Thank you for answering the questions, and great job. Very, very much appreciated. I will be voting in support of this budget for a variety of reasons, and I'd like to articulate them publicly right now. First of all, I think that this is a fiscally responsible, balanced budget that will allow the school district for the first time in many years to have a positive certification. This budget is a result of many very difficult and challenging choices, one of which was realizing over $62 million in savings from the central office. As a result of this board's action to offer a retirement incentive, we had over 1,050 employees from all different bargaining units retire, allowing us to reduce our staffing levels in alignment with our student populations and our budget. This, as has been mentioned, this budget addresses a structural deficit, which has at some point in time been over $128 million in ongoing expenses, and it pares that down to a much more responsible $11 million number. And I believe that we're going to be taking a further look in the months ahead at that $11 million structural deficit opportunity. Then there's the question, what do we fund with this budget? And this budget funds programs that parents, staff, and the community called for through a variety of different input opportunities and public and community forums via the LCAP process, because the LCAP was created with community and parent input, and then that was the criterion at which programs were funded and supported through this budget. So this budget honors our commitment to music and the arts. Next year, we will have music in 100% of our elementary schools. This budget honors our commitment to small class sizes and class size caps in secondary education. This budget honors our commitment to stability of staffing at allocation levels for counselors and nurses. And it honors our commitment to maintain elementary prep time programs and enrichment opportunities such as elementary PE and planning time for teachers in elementary schools to work together to get better. And most importantly, this budget funds and honors our commitment to allocating additional resources to our most at-risk schools, schools that have 100% poverty, schools that have disproportionate populations that are African American, Latino, English language learners, and foster children. Because that's the value, I believe, of this board and of this staff, to make sure that we are providing equity so that all students have opportunities to achieve. Thank you.
Dr. Whiter-Spain.
I, too, will be voting for this budget. Is it perfect? No. And I've had my conversations with the superintendent, and she knows the areas where, she knows some areas that I will not discuss tonight. But in general, I must say that we had a tough job to do. And it did not give, I don't know about you guys, but it didn't give me any pleasure to have to make these decisions. I would like to commend those 1,241 employees who opted, some of them prematurely, to take the buyout and retire or move on to other areas in order to help this system. And I just believe that we've begun to make those decisions, those hard, tough decisions that we had to do. Are my expectations that we will keep student achievement and students at the forefront of everything we do? Absolutely. And I have been working with some of the pastors in the community of the larger churches to ensure that they too are buying into helping our children. The school system cannot do it all. And we need everybody's support to help our children achieve. And this blame game, I don't accept from them, from this board, from anybody else. It's time that we all step up and say, I have a responsibility, and I'm going to do what I can to assist. So that's my commitment. In terms of the trans notes and the monies that we must borrow, I would hope people would understand. It was not until I personally developed a charter budget myself I did not understand how the budget in a school system works until 14 years ago when I developed the budget. We don't have money. Employees receive their paychecks every month, and they just think it just comes from the sky or wherever. But there are certain times when we get our monies from the state based upon the property tax checks that my husband doesn't like to write every December and every April, although he pays it all in December. But those checks mean that the monies come in then and the state has to distribute them. But in the meantime, we've got to write checks throughout the year. And people expect to be paid. So that means that we have to go out and borrow money. And the goal, and that's almost every system, you have to do that. You have to borrow the money. And then you want to get the best rates when you're borrowing the money, just because the state's not giving it to us every month to pay. We have to get the money from them when they give it to us twice a year and then spread it out over the year. So I'm glad that we're at the top of the chain now and our costs are down, and I see our folks are here, and thank you for helping us to get to that point. And thank you for this. I will be voting for it.
Okay, thank you. Dr. McQuarrie, do you have a comment?
Yeah, everything has been said has been well said, and there's not much more to add. And I want to give acclamation to the team and to our departments for the work that they've done to get us here. We have a balanced budget, and that wasn't easy to do. We were looking for $128 million of a budget of $1.3 billion, and we needed to find solutions. That took a lot of hard work, and it was, as Sharon Whitehurst-Payne said, and I agree with her, it was not fun, and it was something that had to be done. And I think this was the board that was capable of doing that with the superintendent and her team. It had the heart, the compassion, the understanding to make the cuts that needed to be made, as well as to reach out and to encourage staff to work with us, to help us identify solutions. And the teachers and other employees that stood up and took the early retirement, absolutely acknowledge the gift that they provided this district over the years that they were here, as well as the gift that they offer to new employees and for employees to be able to stay with us. Is there a rating that a school district can have that's higher than an SB 1+?
Is there a rating?
A bond rating? Are we pretty much at the top end of that?
I believe we are at the top. Yes.
Yeah, my sense is, we're at the top, and it's not something that we create, and it's not something that ideologues create. It's not politicians that create. These are people who are out to make money. They're smart. They want to look for a good investment, and they've decided that we are a good investment. We're a solid investment. And they're willing to risk on us because we have a track record. And that's what we've been able to do to reach the highest rating possible, I believe, for a school district. And that's a decision made by people outside of this group, and it's being made by people who know how to rate agencies. In addition, our budget goes to the county, and the county makes a decision as to whether we are in negative standing, whether we are in qualified, or whether we are positive. And positive is the highest rating. And we've been at qualified for the last 3 years, working in the direction to reach positive, and I believe that we're going to make that happen next year, and we're very, very encouraged. And this here again is not a rating that we established. It's not something that is done politically. It is something that is done by people who know the business, who are financially smart, who know how to take a look at budgets. They see us as making the right decisions, moving us in the right direction to bring us to a positive rating. So the LCAP was definitely a tool that allowed us to make those decisions. We were able to make smart decisions, and in terms of looking backward as to where we came from and to where we are now, to where we are going, we're well on our way to having a sustainable budget, a solid financial standing with an excellent program that will guarantee our students that we're putting them on track to graduate with the skills, academics, careers, and the abilities to be functioning adults in today's society. So commendations to you, board, members of our staff and teachers and employees who have helped make this possible. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll put it very briefly why I am in support of this budget. Basically because of two things. It continues to improve the education of our children, and at the same time it stabilizes the district financially. Now, these cuts have been very painful, but with this stability, we're going to be able to continue to improve their education and have this financial stability. And we're committed not just for the following year, but the next 3 years to balance our budget, which is why we're going for a positive financial certification. And as we do that, we'll be able to move the conversation off to dollars and cents and back to the discussion of how to best educate our children.
Thank you, Dr. Evans. And the only thing that I would add to that is, and I think we all acknowledge that the hard work to balance the budget this year and to all but eliminate the structural deficit that's been with us for years and years is hard work that we all have done together. All of the employees in our district have sacrificed to get us to this point. Our parents have sacrificed to get us to this point, and most of all, our students have sacrificed to get us to this point. And it will allow this district to move forward with stability because in spite of the challenge of dealing with these budget deficits, as several folks have spoken about, that outcomes that our students are achieving continue to be at record levels in this district. They continue to be the very highest outcomes that we see of any large district in this state. And as Dr. Whitehurst-Payne said, all of us have an expectation that those outcomes will continue and improve from where they've been over the last several years as we move forward with this budget for 17-18. So with that said, please vote. Okay, and passes unanimously. Okay, let's move on to item H3, and this is our Title I budget plan for the 17-18 year. Superintendent.
Thank you. This is our, as you said, the Title I budget for 17-18 was discussed at the DAC meeting, and they approved and reviewed several times on this budget. And the total dollar amount allocated to the schools, while the budget Title I dollars from the federal government seem to change from year to year, we do not change the amount that we allocate to the schools. So that represents that exact same priority. So this budget proposes summer school to assist students to meet our graduation requirements, our counseling pilot program, supporting high Title I population with additional counseling, our wellness centers, 3 centers at high schools to support overall wellness, and we've added additional translators to assist sites and support parents. Those are just some highlights in this budget that we're bringing forward tonight.
Great. Can we get a motion to approve the Title I?
So moved.
Second.
And a second. We've got one speaker, Sebastian Ladron de Guevara. Is Sebastian here? If not, please vote.
Just one comment.
One comment.
You know, I just wanted to underscore the fact that the Title I dollars, again, are another example of additional resources being allocated to our most at-risk schools and students in San Diego Unified to provide equity and opportunity and in alignment with our core values.
Thank you. Please vote. Okay, and now we'll move on to the specific item to authorize the trans for this year. And maybe we could ask our advisor, Mark Young, to just talk to us for a couple minutes about the process that we go through every year and what that process has looked like this year.
While he's coming forward, I'll add to that this is to adopt the resolution for the 17-18 trans, which is our tax and revenue anticipation notes. It's in the amount not to exceed $250 million, and to authorize the execution execution and delivery of the related documents, including the note purchase agreement and preliminary official statement. And Mark will give us a few more details. And he also says he can answer some questions that just came up a few minutes ago.
Right. Great, thank you. President Barrera, trustees, Superintendent Martin. My name is Mark Young. I'm a managing director with K&N Public Finance. I'm the district's municipal advisor and have been for, gosh, over 20 years. It's a pleasure to be up here this evening to talk about this year's trans process. Each year, something that was instituted with Cindy and Jenny a number of years back is we start the year and we have one-on-one meetings with all of you to go through the work plan. This year, we specifically, in the work plan, mentioned to you that we were going to be accelerating the hiring of underwriters to not only work on long-term bond program, but the TRAN program. And one of the reasons we were accelerating that is we wanted our finance team to be on board during the January, February, March process when you were making some very difficult decisions and you let the world know this year we're going to meet the structural deficit head on, and we're going to make some very difficult decisions to deal with a structural deficit that now we've learned the state budget is not going to grow us out of it. And over the last couple of years, you've had one-time solutions that you've used over a multi-year period to buy you the time to look at programs, to look at the district and figure out exactly at a certain point when we're going to have to kind of cut and deal with the structural deficit. I have to applaud your efforts this year and your success in cutting the amount that was necessary to truly then put your finance team in the position for the first time in it's got to be 6 or 7 years where we didn't have belt and suspenders, Band-Aids, tricks, property sales, deferrals, early retirement, I mean, everything to just try to buy the time. This was really the first year where we presented a structurally balanced budget to the rating agencies, to the bond community. It was noted from the beginning when we had our kickoff meeting with the finance team, and they heard that this was a structurally balanced budget. At the time, there was only, I think, 15 million of issues that were negotiable. And so we had a discussion about that. So we all really got into the details to make sure that, you know, this in fact was what it was before we go make representations to the bond market and the rating agencies. The rating agency, we only go to one, Standard & Poor's, because we only need to go to one, who over the years, your finance staff has demonstrated, and your actions as a board have demonstrated a lot of credibility in the fact that when we come back to them each year, we have to say, here were our projections, and here's what we did. And to be able to show them that the property sales worked, that it was part of a multi-year plan. We've never come back to them with a significant deviation of something we said we'd do, and then, oops, we missed that. And they acknowledged it in the rating agency presentation this year. This was probably the easiest presentation we've done in 6 to 7 years. No deferrals, no explanations on one-time fixes and the like, but truly a structurally balanced budget. They noted in their report the desire of the board to obtain that positive certification. So it's something that they actually highlighted in their report. You did get the highest short-term rating, SP1+. You never should put Gammy on the spot or any finance when it comes to numbers and percentages, but if we didn't get that SP1+, we'd probably be borrowing about 1/4% higher in terms of an effective borrowing costs, which on a $200 million roughly financing, that's about $500,000. So it's a significant gain in terms of that. And again, the write-up from S&P, they noted the difficult decisions the board made. They've highlighted in a positive way balancing the budget. And I just have to say kudos to the board and the staff for recognizing that the issues years ago, coming up with plans each year to try to
solve and use one-time resources to develop a multi-year plan. But frankly, this was the year that difficult decisions had to be made in terms of getting to structural balance. And the markets will have and will recognize that. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mark. Okay, can we get a motion to approve
So
our
moved.
trans sale?
Second?
Any further questions or comments?
I'm just glad that all of our hard work turned out for easy work for Mark.
Yeah, exactly. All right, please vote.
I want to thank Mark for his 20 years of service to the school district and for helping us save taxpayer money. We look at this and we go, well, with this highest bond, with this highest rating, Mark just articulated that means we're saving about $500,000 in taxpayer money. That translates into 5 or 6 teachers, 5 or 6 music teachers, or a lot of resources that we need to be spending in the schools and not giving to the bankers. So thank you.
Please vote. Okay, terrific. Can we get a motion on item H5, right-of-way for the Revere Center?
So moved.
Please vote.
Open the public hearing and close it. Oh, I'm sorry, it's the wrong one.
No, I think this is actually the public hearing. Public hearing is open. Thank you. Thank you, Mark.
Okay.
Please vote. Public hearing is closed. Item H6, can we get a motion and a second? Work year reduction plans.
So moved.
Second?
Please vote. Kevin? That's it.
First time.
All right, and our meeting is adjourned. Do we have any further, one more non-agenda public speaker?
That it took for you to get here when you just really started doing this budget this year to try and get to where you are now is ridiculous. And I do appreciate the fact that you guys have people that provide services. But every year you guys are kind of going through the same things. And when we talk about the work that we're doing and we talk about the students and we talk about equity, as Mr. Beiser did, District E students don't have equity, even with Title I funds. District E students don't have equity and don't have clear understandings of what IEPs are. When you talk about what you're doing, are you talking about the kids that are impacted every day by the increase of suspension and expulsion, by the abolishment of your race and human relations department, because you guys use that term abolishing in 2017, because you don't have race and human relations within our communities. Payne, I hear, is working with the large churches. Many of those large churches don't even step foot long-term into these school districts unless there's media attention. They don't have programs in that school. They don't provide food. They don't help the families. There are things that are not happening. So I appreciate that you're talking to them, but where are they? Where have they been? Another thing, when we look at the budget and we're looking at kids in District E or other areas where there are the lowest socioeconomic status and kids that are black and brown, I want to understand how we come up with numbers like Knox when they're graduating kids that were not on the graduation list. Are we really giving true numbers, or are we elevating numbers so we look good? And that's what I want to know. I think that there should be an investigation into the practices of this school district, because you look real good on paper, but I want people to see what you look like out in the streets. You don't look like what your paper says in the communities. And so that's a problem for me. Everybody can write something really well on paper. You fund people like that. Just probably like this gentleman you're funding now. I'm not saying he didn't do the work, but if they look good on paper, you'll give them money. We need to stop looking good on paper. We need to make sure that kids are properly prepared for society. They're not. You're giving us numbers, but you're failing our students and our parents, and especially kids with IEPs. And you should really look into that.